A few months ago, in the Christian blogosphere and on Christian Twitter, there was a conversation of sorts around a provocative question. Is empathy a sin? The argument of the theologians who were saying that, yes, empathy is a sin, seems to basically boil down to this idea that we cannot so deeply enter into someone else's emotional pain as empathy does without being ourselves drawn into or condoning or approving of whatever sinful or evil or bad behavior that the suffering person may have engaged in that led them to their negative emotional state to begin with. Now, I don't buy any of that, to be clear, but if you're at all interested in any of that discourse, and God help you if you are, you can go Google the sin of empathy and go down a veritable rabbit hole of arguments and counter arguments about all of that. The reason I bring it up today is that when all of this was being hashed out on Twitter back in late summer, August timeframe, it made me long for the liturgical season that we're now in, called Advent, and the one that is coming next, called Christmas. Because these seasons are when we look forward to and celebrate the incarnation of Jesus Christ, the Word becoming flesh and dwelling with us. The wonderful late Rachel Held Evans has a line about her faith that I think resonates with many of us. That is, on the days when I believe this. I am a doubter, maybe by nature. I'm very often unsure if I buy into this whole God thing at all. But on the days like today, with all of you, that I believe it, this is what I hold on to. That God, the divine mystery, the love that is our grounding, that holds the whole universe together, isn't some far off super being that is uninterested in our lives or holds our feelings at an arm's length or treats us as playthings to be manipulated. On the days when I believe it, I love this season because it's full of music like the carols we're singing this morning that declare, "Hail, incarnate deity." If you want to find God, look here. Veiled in flesh, the Godhead see. Veiled in flesh, not far off, but dwelling among us, radically empathizing with us, with our pain and our fears and our doubts and our joys. Here. But I also understand the temptation to deny this radical empathy, to warn against it, because entering so fully into the sorrows of others, making their pain my own, is costly. It might cost us everything. Because Jesus may have begun this incarnational journey away in a manger, but it took him all the way to the cross. Why is incarnational empathy so dangerous, so radical? An old Christmas carol tells us that too. Truly, he taught us to love one another. His law is love, and his gospel is peace. Chains shall he break, for the slave is our brother, and in his name all oppression shall cease. In the antebellum South during slavery, that verse of O Holy Night was banned. They wouldn't sing it. They wouldn't even allow it to be printed in their hymnals. Why? Because if the enslavers were to enter into the suffering of the enslaved, the entire economic system would implode. If they recognized that their slaves were in fact their brothers, if all of that oppression were to cease, it would cost a lot of people a lot of money and power. And today, right now, just like our antebellum ancestors, we have people in our lives and in our society that we still do not fully recognize as our brother, as our siblings, members of the LGBTQ community, the incarcerated, people with disabilities, political opponents, maybe ones that wear red hats. And so the work of incarnation is not done. So this Advent and this Christmas, this is what I want to do, and maybe you all will join me. I want to follow Jesus further into the mystery of radical incarnational empathy, not as someone who sits above it all, but instead mildly lays glory by and enters in, learns to love more deeply and empathize with those who are suffering more fully. Maybe if we do that, if we really follow Jesus into that this year, the next Advent, when we dust off these carols again, we'll be able to sing louder and more honestly the line, "Truly, He taught us to love one another."